Hi, I'm Seamless, and this is the 40K plus 2 tutorial, number 40 plus 2. This is the 40K tutorial, number 40 plus 2. That's what I just said. This was requested by Fifth Philosophy. Wow. And it is a sound from a track called Gambino by DC Breaks. And a lot of it is a lot of stuff that I've had a lot of problems with, and if people were watching me trying to make this on the stream, they sat through a lot of bullshit. But I kind of arrived at the sound, and it sounds like this. Kinda. And you should at least know the sound that I'm trying to make. But let's discuss about what's going on. So I actually kind of cheated a little bit when I made this, and I dragged a portion of a sound that I made from a previous 40K. This was the Skrillex, Killanoise, Mile Notice, and someone else. A lot of people on it once. And it was the little pluggy metallic thing, and I had problems with the pluggy metallic thing, but underneath the pluggy metallic thing was a bit of a Reese kind of beneath it. And I took just the Reese portion of the original patch. I messed around with it a little bit, just a little tiny bit, but not a lot. And I layered that in there with what I've made here. Now, this is the part that took me the longest to get, and it had a little bit to do with my unfamiliarness with the actual process by which it's created, but also because I spent a lot of my time making this sound at an entire octave lower than I should have been, which just colored everything and made everything terrible. And the second to put it in the right octave, and I did everything the way I was, and it just came out better. So let's discuss what's happening. I'll turn off the effects to have on it. And I'll turn off. Actually, I have no effects on it. So this is the bass effect. I guess a little bit of compression. Let's turn it off too. So that's the sound that it starts as. Now, essentially what I'm doing here is I have a square wave, and it's actually sort of double square. And in harmony, what I mean by that is that it's actually no, this is regular square. I don't need to be at bet frequency ratio 2, but essentially that just meant that it's an octave higher than the MIDI that I put down. I made a bandpass, and inside Harmor, I've actually made it, just had this little automation. You can change the tone of it by moving around the actual frequency knob. But you can see there's a few harmonics that are extremely accentuated if you're paying attention to what the first menu that I was when I opened it up was actually the local EQ here, where I've gone in and I've actually accentuated a few harmonics, and I've actually also brought down a bunch like these guys. And these are actually accentuated from above them before, and then above these doesn't really matter because the band pass isn't really making it go any higher than that. I also have keyboard tracking engaged on the bandpass, and the width is set also kind of to taste. And I have it set to almost entirely square, but with a little bit of original saw harmonics kind of engaged in there. Here's full square, full saw. Not a big difference, but there is a big difference when we engage the distortion. And harmonic randomness just to give some cool tonality to it. Here's some distortion and some shapes and stuff. Like I kind of just messed around with it. Like I still don't have a real process and understanding of this distortion. I kind of know what it does in a technical level, but I don't really know how to do the things that are apparently very commonplace to lots of other things. So I'm still trying to figure that out in a kind of molecular way. And in doing so, I'm wasting lots of time and doing stuff that's way harder than it should be, but that's how I roll. And then I have this EQ to kind of bring down the higher frequencies just a little bit, because I am layering in this dude to go above it to be the higher frequencies, because that's kind of what it sounded like to me, and I really didn't know how to get that tone on something that had that kind of motion on it. And either they did in the original track, the DC Breaks Gambino, or it's a layer. It's the way I did here. Although my layer actually does very much sound like a layer. It sounds like there are two things together versus the original sound, which doesn't sound like that. And it's not because it's 100% certain that there isn't a layer. It's just because he did a much better job. He, they, she, whoever did a much better job creating the layer than I did. And then it's all brought together with more distortion and more compression. And Actually, the Reese might be a bit too much. I put the bandpass guy in one channel, the Reese in the other channel, and they're both going to a third channel, and then balancing them out to kind of make it feel better, that kind of thing. It's very straightforward. In the compression, I'm sort of utilizing the mid-band as almost a wave shaper. There's still some time variables, and it's enough to make it not do really distorty things, but it's doing kind of distorty things, so it's kind of neat. Bass is kind of left alone because the bass is stable enough for a sound like this. The high frequencies are brought up a bit, and the time variables are brought down a bunch, so that happens fast. And then on the main, I have no compression, and I'm using soft saturation. Although I brought it down a little bit just because it wasn't super necessary to crunch it, although it sounds kind of cool when you do, doesn't it? And distortion fun. So yeah, let's talk about the Reese. This guy, I kind of built off of some basic ideas about how Reeses are supposed to work. And by that I mean is that there is a saw wave, and then it's played against another saw wave. It doesn't look like a saw wave, but it was at one time a saw wave, and I randomized a couple of lower harmonics by just kind of fucking around. I left the higher harmonics kind of alone, but it doesn't particularly matter because the lower the harmonic that you mess with, the bigger the impact it has on the visible wave shape. And that creates, it kind of distresses the frequency spectrum. And then when I do things like I have this oscillator, which is a very, very, very low pitched triangle wave, and that's FMing the secondary oscillator. So that means that its pitch is being changed against the first oscillator whose pitch is not. So it's static. And so that creates pitch differences, which makes it create movement. It goes into two wave shapers. One is just kind of a regular saturated one, and one has the waveform type at the smallest point where it could have at least one wave. Smallest point is this, where it looks like a double curve, but then I have the wave mode. And that's just because I felt like doing two of them. One of them is a chorus, and another there's this EQ, where I kind of accentuate the higher, sort of high-ish harmonics. And then down here, there is a sub layer, which is just letting the bass come through into the third distortion. And the reason why I did that is because there's a certain quality of distortion that I do know about, where it sounds a little bit rounder when you force some sub against it. And if I left just the mids and sort of the higher frequencies that are a result of this, it would sound more high frequency kind of washy deal. So I brought in the sub, as you can see, it wasn't a lot of sub to kind of bring it home. And then I did this weird little wave type deal. That's what this was. Or is this stairs? That might be stairs. Yeah, smooth stairs. And just, I don't really remember why I did that, but it was cool, so I did. There's actually some automatable points on here because in the original sound that I made this for, there was actually another sound in here that was the main sound, and this was just a bottom layer. And then I used part of that to like basically sidechain some frequencies where it came in because it sounded like it pulsed up a bit. And then more, EQ cuts. Neuro tends to have this really big old mid scoop, which can be lots of fun. And then it's compressed. It's not really a lot going on here. Suppose I should probably... Now, I mentioned to the streamers when I was making this is that part of the reason why I was accentuating the harmonics the way that I did is because it very much influenced the tone of the bandpass. However, if you listen to the original sound, it does sound like there's just a bit more motion involved than what I'm doing here. Now, it's probably because there's a filter or something afterwards that's moving around in the lower end in some way that's kind of changing the harmonic content that I also accentuated. So at one point, these sorts of this kind of harmonic arrangement was true, but it probably moved from this to another kind and moved around the harmonics via like a notch filter or something to kind of achieve the similar result. At least that was my theory. I didn't really try because I spent a long time making the sound and I want to do other ones. The project file for this will be available in the description of this video. Yeah, and then the original will also be in the description, so you can kind of see how far off I was. And if you would like to make a request, the link to the Reddit thread where you're able to make a request is also in the description of this video. And finally, if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day.